Hi, everyone. We are here live. I'm Dr. Melanie Barham from the DVM project, and I'm joined today by Jenica Veley. And Jenica is a veterinary technician, an RVT, and she started a business. And the reason that I really wanted to interview Jenica is because she's doing something innovative and cool in the vet tech space and in the veterinary space. And we have a ton of people who want to own their own business or have an idea inside of them that they want to spring on the veterinary world or outside of the veterinary world, but for whatever reason haven't yet. So I'm super glad to have you here. And Jenica, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and tell us about your journey, your career journey.
Okay, so hi everybody, I'm Jenica Veley. I grew up in a tiny little town in Northern Ontario. Melanie and I were just talking about rural internet and how it's kind of a joke to have something called high speed in the country. I didn't know what internet was for much longer than I like to admit. So I grew up on a dairy farm and my mom was a veterinarian. So I grew up in the vet world and I loved all the animals. We had cows and horses and dogs everywhere and cats everywhere. And I went with my mom to different farm calls and saw all the animals there. And it was a lot of amazing things. We had a wildlife center that we had a monkey go through and I helped babysit the monkey once. They don't like to keep their diapers on and they poop everywhere is what I remember from that.
Good to know.
Yes. So as I grew up, I couldn't imagine doing anything else my whole life other than working in the vet field. And I tried, the usual working at Subway, working with kids. And I worked at a while in a call center. I did all the things and nothing ever felt good to me until I went back to vet medicine and I got my registration as a registered vet tech. And then I started working with my mom and it was what an experience, right? When you work with somebody I don't know, well, she was my mom, right? So we connected.
I would hope so.
When she passed away in 2010, I moved away from my tiny little town that I'd grown up in for 25 years. And I moved into a big city. Well, to me, it was big. It was London, Ontario. So not huge, but big enough. And I started in with a practice there that was small animal. So dogs and cats. And it was still a newer practice. It was only in the first year of its practice. So it was still practice infancy, as I like to think of it. And so everything was like very small, tight budget. And you didn't always have coverage for the hours that you needed coverage. They were great. I loved working with them. I learned a lot about myself and they helped me develop skills in different ways. And it was amazing. It was an incredible experience. I watched their practice grow and the manager was a business manager and they had a vet and a business manager. And I learned a lot from the business manager and what to do to let people know what you were doing and be interested in you. And so he was an incredible person to learn from. And then after a while, the practice wasn't a right fit for me anymore. I felt like I wasn't able to grow anymore. So I switched practices to a mobile practice with one of the vets that had been at the bigger practice. Mm-hmm. And I helped him buy everything for his base practice. It was so much fun. I got a shopping list and I was like, okay, anesthetic machines, dental x-rays, cages, everything. I got to help buy everything for the ground practice. And I just thought it was so much fun. And I worked with him as I worked part mobile and part in the ground practice. And again, I noticed the same kind of gaps. There was because we were a smaller practice, there wasn't always somebody to cover. There was somebody in the morning, and then we would have the space of time when both of us were working, and then there'd be nobody in the evening to cover the phones, and people would be doing double duty. Or when you're in surgery and you're supposed to be focusing on surgery, you have to answer the phone too. And it's what happens in a growing practice. It happened with my mom, it happened in London, it happened in the mobile practice. I'm like, starting to see a theme here.
A little bit. Yeah, I like it.
A little bit. So I got pregnant and I had a baby on the day that COVID shutdowns were starting to be announced. So it's like, hey, I have a new baby.
So this is pretty new. You've got a new baby.
Yeah, so she's 7 months old. She's COVID age.
Nice. COVID o'clock. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I know exactly how long COVID has been around. Well, that it's affected my life, I guess. And she's amazing. She's incredible. But while I was pregnant, I was thinking about all the ways that I'd seen these things that I could help. And I started researching. I talked to many different people. I was getting all ready to launch this business. And I was like, okay, I'm going to wait till my baby's born. My kids are back in school. And then COVID happened. And I was like, okay, now I have to wait for my kids to be done school for the summer so I can launch after the summer. And that's what I did. And I decided that I wanted to help vets with that gap, with that moment of time when they need somebody there, but they don't necessarily need somebody physically there, just somebody answering the phone, checking the emails, maybe text messages, or, hey, we had some sick patients. Can you check up on those sick patients and see how they're doing after we were at their house 2 days ago? Those are the gaps that I was seeing over and over again, that when a practice gets busier, they don't always have time to follow up on. So those things do not need to be done in the clinic. And I thought, well, why not do them from home? And so I found a way. I brainstormed. I have an amazing friend. She let me bounce ideas off of her for 2 months straight, trying to figure out all the pitfalls, okay, if you can't do this, what if they ask you that? What happens if this doesn't work? What are you going to do if? Good. She was really good at picking my ideas apart so I could find solutions to all the potential problems. And so I did. I found solutions. I figured out, okay, I'll do this if X happens. I'll do that if Y happens. And she was amazing. And I'm very, very grateful for that. Because when I was ready to launch, I already had an idea of how I was going to approach problems and solve them.
That's fantastic. So I think you touched on a couple of really cool things there that I just want to kind of circle back to, or I don't know, just share again, I suppose, or reiterate. I'm just going to cough for a second, so it's not COVID, but I'm going to mute.
Oh no.
Okay, sorry about that. Oh boy.
That's okay.
Okay. Dear, oh dear. So one thing is, so you saw a problem and you were like, okay, I think I could probably fix this, which I think is typically what most entrepreneurs do. They find a problem and they think, I could probably solve that. And a lot of us will have that idea and be like, oh, I could probably fix that. I could probably do that. But then it's that point about taking action. So if we could go back to that time when you were like, yeah, I think it's a great idea to launch a business with a new baby. Tell me more about that.
Well, she's my third baby. So I figured, I kind of knew that there was going to be lots of time that, yeah, my baby was definitely going to need attention. I wouldn't be able to ignore her or anything like that. But I figured there was times when I would be able to spend time setting things up. I was going to go over all the paperwork and stuff. I did actually have to hire a nanny to help me, because now that she's crawling, she needs to not be so bored. She's developed the unfortunate habit of looking at you and shrieking in your face if she's bored. So she's gotten better since I hired the nanny. She's a lovely lady. And I don't know why I thought doing it when I had a new baby was a good idea. It just, in my brain. I'm
100% like, not criticizing you. I think it's amazing. And I think it's really great. And I just wondered, like, so you know, that point where you're like, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger and I'm going to move from this to this.
I looked at it and I thought, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it, because I'm on maternity leave, and I don't remember where you're located, but in Canada, I think you're in Guelph, but in Canada, maternity leave is 1 hour or 1 year. And so I was like, if I don't pull the trigger while I'm on maternity leave, I can fail, because I'm still I still have income coming in. And if I fail, then either I didn't plan this out properly, I have a terrible idea and it's not really going to be worth anything after all, or I'll succeed. and I'm going to do this full time instead of going back to a clinic. So I pulled the trigger and I was like, I got to do it. If I don't do it now, I'll always wonder what if. And
that is so great. And I hope that anybody who's listening that has an idea, I hope that they take that to heart, because I think that's so important. I also think that this idea of a maternity leave being, it's definitely, I have 2 kids, it's definitely not a vacation, but it does give you some time late at night in the wee hours where you come up with these wild and crazy ideas. And so I think that's a real gift. Like if you're a father and you're thinking about going on paternity leave, but golly, do it, because you know what? You could come up with the best, you could come up with a great idea. If you're a mom and you're thinking about going on maternity leave, it's so great to have a bit of space. And maybe it's something about being sleep deprived that does it to you. I'm not really sure, but
you know what? There might be something to the sleep deprivation causing you to think crazy thoughts.
Maybe, yeah, it's possible.
And then just being crazy enough to think that they could happen and come true.
Right. Maybe it just kind of dulls down your inhibitions to like say no, because you're just maybe that's, I don't know. I mean, it's a good, the other part that I think is important, if you don't have kids as well, or you don't have the opportunity to have another child, then is that there is actually research to suggest that going on mini breaks from your career is really great to give yourself some space to do stuff like that. So if you find yourself in this crisis where you're underemployed, or you're not in a spot where you have a job, then it can be a really big gift. You can come up with such great ideas, and there's really good research to back that, which is kind of a silver lining of maybe a situation you might not have chosen.
Yes. And what's crazy about everything that's happening is I've gotten to the point now where I'm bringing on other vet techs to work with me, because the response has been amazing. I love the vets I'm working with, the people I've gotten a chance to meet, like you yourself. You're incredible too. I've been following your stuff for a while, and I love what you post, and your mindset is so forward thinking, and let's fix the problem. Let's not focus on the problem. Like there's a solution. Let's find the solution and keep moving towards the solution. And I love that mindset. And all the vets I've had a chance to work with they're incredible, and they're very much like that. They like to see the ideas for what they are and see if they are applicable to them, and not like, we've all met those people who say no to something because it's not what's normally done, or it's not what they've ever seen, or it's too new, or too I don't know exactly. There's too something, right? Yeah. And I guess this really lends itself to people who want to give themselves a break from being overworked. Like, one of the things that I'm really finding with this is vets love what they do. You don't get into being a vet without loving what you do. We're not getting into it for the money. I mean, it's nice, but it's definitely not like, there's some pretty lucrative careers out there. If being a vet is not necessarily the first one to come to mind. But they're incredible, and you learn so much, and you're so smart. But then you start a business and you're wearing all the hats and you're doing all the things, and finding somebody who can support you is really hard. It's very hard. And finding somebody who believes in you and will give you a safe place to vent and say all the things that you're thinking and you can't say in front of clients, or maybe to your spouse who hasn't worked the job and doesn't understand. You need a place to do that without it being, I don't know, going anywhere else. You need to know it's going into a pit, and it's just going there, it's staying there, somebody understands, and you feel heard. I really
what's the, like the Guy Friday, I think I'm too old, I'm not old enough for that reference, I think, but, or like a a right hand lady, really.
Yeah. Yeah, so I feel like that is a really important thing to provide. Like, it's a really important role to be there as a vet tech. We can provide that for veterinarians. We have enough knowledge to help, if we have an idea that's different from what their idea, be like, hey, have you tried this way of giving pills to that cat? Because that cat be cray cray and needs a little bit of a different method of doing it. Or if you're having a hard time and a client you're just like, okay, am I seeing this the wrong way? Is this client actually being difficult, or am I just imagining it? Or when you have those clients, they're just incredible and you need to share the moment. It's, I feel like I can say honestly that I've been part of those moments with some of the vets that I've worked with, because they don't have a regular technician that they work with. So I've become that person for them. And I think that's really important. And I think that helps protect veterinarians too, because it gives them a safe place to feel however they want to feel without worrying about being judged. And I think a lot of us put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be perfect and present ourselves as perfect. And I don't think that's fair to ask that from people when they're sharing thoughts. Anyway, so one of my big goals, is, you can see I'm very passionate. I want vets to feel safe and heard and do all the things that they want to do and be amazing at all the things they want to be amazing at, and give them some solid backing to it. And no, I'm not amazing at everything, but I like to have my fingers in all the pies. So I like to know everything, and I'll research anything and figure it out if I don't know enough about it, because I'm curious enough to do that. And as I grow, because maybe they want to do a platform and teach somebody something that they know how to do and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, it's super curious. I like to look into things. So as I grow the vet techs that I want working with me, I'm going to try to match them with the personalities of the vets that I'm meeting, because every vet is different and what they need is different. So
So you're like a matchmaker for veterinary technicians and vet relationships.
Matchmaker. Find me.
Yeah, I like it. That's really cool. But I also just think it's really neat to think about the different ways that we can optimize the use of RVTs in our profession, because oftentimes I feel like RVTs are somewhat underutilized, where they could be used in so many different applications as the professionals that you are. And then the other part is understand, like something you touched on that really hit home for me is that idea of the relationship and the importance of having support as a solopreneur. Because really, as a small practice owner, it can be very lonely. From what I have not been a solo practitioner before, but knowing the colleagues that I have and the concerns that they've shared with me, I think that is a big concern for them. And having somebody to lean on. And I honestly, like, as an equine veterinarian in the field, I was grateful every single day for my technicians. Like, they kept me safe, but honestly, just even having somebody to get in the car and be like, good grief, that was crazy.
Right?
Or, oh my gosh, we really did it. Like, just like you hit on, that's such an important relationship. And they helped, they made our days successful and they made our days safe. And just, I could not have done the hours that I did without them. So I think it's an incredible way to just really highlight and appreciate that relationship that's there, and the mutual benefit that we all get out of that from having RVTs in the profession.
I love what you just said, all of that. That's really good. I just saw a study. I can't remember if you posted it or somebody else posted it, about the OAVT. They released the study from 2018, what the actual benefit of paying RVTs well and having RVTs working in your practice.
Versus, it was like $78,000 brought into the practice or something.
Per RVT.
Yeah, so it was a huge gain. Yeah. If you haven't seen that study, I will post it again. But it was, I can't remember if it was me that posted it, but it was really wonderful. The OAVT had it done, and they did look at the financials for practices. It was a very well done study. And I thought it was really nice to see some of the numerical value and then obviously they can't quantify so much as the intrinsic value that we get from having other professionals around us. So the other thing that I just wanted to chat about is that, so we in our career discussion groups always get the question, hey, I'm looking for remote work, I'm looking for virtual work, what's available, and looking around for different things. And I actually just really love the idea that I'm assuming, and I probably shouldn't make this assumption, that you designed this virtually on purpose. Like, you didn't, you were intentional about that.
Yes, I was. I definitely wanted something that, there's a few different reasons I decided to go virtually. I think there is for everybody. They all have different reasons, but for me, it was, I wanted to be available if I wanted to stay home and if I had to call in sick. Like I haven't had to do that. I don't really call in sick very often.
Yeah.
I think I've called in sick once in the last 3 years. It was because I had food poisoning, and yeah, anyway.
You really were sick. Yeah.
Yeah, I really wasn't doing well that day. But I also really, I wanted something that was mine. I wanted to support veterinarians, but I wanted something that I was responsible for, was mine, and I could look at and say, I did that.
I like it. Yep. I understand that feeling.
And I played with all the different things that RVTs are so amazing at doing, and none of them were right for me. And so I had always been fascinated by the virtual assistant remote work that I'd seen posted here and there. And I was lucky enough to make friends with somebody who was a virtual assistant, and she explained it to me. And I was like, I love it, but none of those skills apply to me specifically outside of the veterinary field. Like, I could totally do them for a vet. And she's like, well, why don't you? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, you could be a virtual assistant for a vet. And I'm like, vets don't do that. and she's like, well, why don't they? And I'm like, well, I don't know.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah. So then it kind of just grew from there. And the more I thought about it, and I researched virtual assistants like a lot. I joined a bunch of groups to find out about it, add their programs and how they work, and joined some really great Facebook groups. Actually, they were super informative, very positive, very educational, and I learned a lot. And that was where I based where I was coming from, was that I'm assisting a veterinarian virtually as a virtual vet, like as a vet tech, as somebody who knows the industry and understands the industry, keeps my continuing education up, reads about the information. And that piece is really important to me because as a registered vet tech, I have to keep my CE up to par. I have to be knowledgeable about what's going on in the vet world. I have to be accountable to them for it, right? Like, I can't just say, hey, I'm a vet tech, here we go.
And and you have licensing and and disciplinary action if something goes wrong, like all of those things that we have as veterinarians, which is just fantastic. It's just like I think it's recognition of all the work that you guys have done as a profession, and all the value that you bring. So first of all, I just want to say that, like, it's very, very inspiring to hear, I think about this, like, okay, so if you can dream it, and if you can and believe it, then you can basically achieve it. So no matter how crazy the idea is, you could probably make it work by filling a need that's really there. It sounds like you did a ton of research, so it's not like you jumped in without having any idea of what you were doing, which would be a crazy thing. That would be crazy. But but having an idea about some way that you can solve a problem, researching the heck out of it, and then executing it is just wonderful, because you really took an idea and you took a life that you wanted, or a way that you wanted to design how you wanted to live and how you wanted to employ other people and all of those kind of things, and made it into your own. So I hope that, again, if you're listening, these are really good messages, really important to hear.
I feel like something that was super important to me, and I can't emphasize this enough, is find a friend who will come from a positive place and pick your idea apart and tell you what other people are going to see as problems, and and allow you a chance to find solutions, and then give those solutions to them and be like, would these solutions be acceptable in this situation? Because that piece was super important. If I hadn't had that one person picking my ideas apart, I might have launched and been a complete failure because I didn't know necessarily what the objections were going to be. So
yeah, that's great. And having a supportive person who can be supportive and pick it apart is really good. If you don't have anybody in your life like that, I will offer up that most towns will have an innovation center or a small business center, and they can pair you with mentors. So if you have your wild and crazy idea and you'd like to put it forward, and I'm not saying that Jenica's was a crazy idea, because it's not, it's a great idea. But if you have something in your head that you think is going to be, you think is wild and crazy, you can go to your local innovation center. Like in Guelph, there's Innovation Guelph, where I actually was just accepted. The DVM project, I haven't really announced this to anybody, but the DVM project was accepted into a program for small scalable businesses that are doing good in the world. So
good for you.
Yeah, it's really exciting, actually. So I just started last week, so I haven't really kind of shared it with anybody. So this is sort of our soft announcement.
Oh, I'm very excited for you. That's always so great when you see your project, I don't know, growing up. It's not a baby project anymore. It's like a toddler, or
like a real thing. Oh my God. Yeah, right. I'm sure you felt the same way, but it's exciting, and it's great to be linked up with people who can really mentor you and help you along the way. So if you do feel like you don't have anybody in your life like that, there are places you can look, or you can look in our group. Like, I'm sure if you were going to launch something or were thinking about it, there'd be other people who would want to be in a group together and discuss or meet regularly. That all things are possible. So don't be afraid to put it sounds so cheesy and so weird, but like, don't be afraid to put your aura and your idea out into the universe.
Put it out there. Honestly, I feel like the more you, like, I think the researching it really is what I was putting my energy out there. I was asking questions about it. I went out there and I found people that could possibly maybe give me answers. It's been in different areas. Like, I went to people who were vets, I went to virtual assistants, I went to friends, I went to like Google. I asked everybody, like, what do they think about this idea? What would you do with this? How would you handle that? And I just kept going until I felt like I had enough answers to make this a real go. And I mean, I definitely haven't perfected anything. Like, I don't think there's any perfection happening. It's just, I believe that this is something that is worth doing and doing well. And I kind of secretly want to create a whole new career path for veterinarians and maybe veterinarians, but definitely vet techs, RVTs specifically, because I always feel in my heart of hearts, what happens to a vet tech when they're ready to retire? Where do they go? They don't actually retire. We're not fooling ourselves and thinking that they retired and like are living off of the residual income here. And I want to give them an opportunity to use all the things and all the amazing knowledge that they have and keep putting it out there and still being able to be a vet tech just in a different way and kind of go sideways and still keep going up in their career, and give them an opportunity to not look at their life and wonder, what do they do now? So, because I hurt my back, not badly, just like I picked up a dog I shouldn't have because I was showing off, whatever, that happens. And
like, don't worry, I'll get this greyhound. I'll get this big guy. Don't worry.
Yeah. And then the big dog proceeded to wrestle me on the way up, and my back tweaked, and I couldn't turn properly for a couple days. And then I started thinking, I'm like, wait a second, because my hubby has a bad back, and I'm like, well, what happens when this becomes a day of life, like a daily way of life? Like, and I can no longer pick up the animals or wrestle them, or like, what do I do then? Who am I if I'm not a vet tech wrestling a dog on the ground?
They're really good questions, though. Like, what do you do if nothing like an injury to make you question everything as you're laying there being like, oh God. But yeah, for sure. I think those are really good points. Or like, and that question of identity that you alluded to is really important. Like, who am I if I'm not a vet tech, or who am I if I'm not a vet, or if I'm not a practicing vet, or what have you. Those are really good questions. And I think it's cool that you've opened up a new stream of possibilities for technicians, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So Jenica, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate all the knowledge you've brought to us, and I can't wait to see where virtual vet techs goes.
Me too. I'm very excited.